Today we're going to talk about Intel Thread Director, a game-changing new technology and arguably the best name for Intel's clothing line. With Intel's new 12th and 13th generation processors, Thread Director is the coordinator that is helping to take performance to the next level. So let's get started. First, what is it? To understand Thread Director, we first need to talk about what a thread is. When looking at processors, there are two specs that come up right away: core count and thread count. To put it simply, you can think of a core like a brain and a thread like a thought. If you were to have one core with one thread, that's like having one brain with one thought at a time. That's how I personally operate. However, if you increase that number of threads to 2, that's like having one brain that can have two thoughts simultaneously. At Intel, we call this hyperthreading. In the case of a high-resource workload, like gaming or photo editing, your system needs to be able to process multiple thoughts at once in order to have a smooth experience. That's why higher-end systems generally have more cores and more threads. The more brains your system has, and the more thoughts those brains are capable of having, the more complex tasks your system is going to be able to do. So how does Thread Director work with performance hybrid architecture? That takes me to Alder Lake, Intel's 12th generation processor and the first of its processors to use Thread Director. Intel saw the need for a system that could tailor its performance to the requirements of any workload. Not every workload requires high-frequency computing, and approaching computing that way is not the most effective use of your processor. To do this, Intel created their first hybrid architecture processor. These processors have high-frequency P cores for high-performance tasks, as well as lower-frequency E cores meant for modern multitasking. This hardware presents a platform that can have the best core available for any type of workload. However, this is where it gets complicated. Having multiple types of cores designated to multiple threads is like hiring more employees. If used effectively, more work can be done faster. If not, you end up with a lot of wasted potential. Computer processing is not so much a flow of data following one path, as it is a mega highway navigating data all over the place. Because of this, there needs to be something that dictates where frequency goes and when. Enter Thread Director. Thread Director is a hardware and software solution built into Intel's new hybrid architecture that intelligently directs workload threads to the right core at the right time to complete the task. Thread Director was built with our partners at Microsoft as a communicator and coordinator between the OS and the processor. Thread Director works in tandem with Windows 11. On the OS level, Windows 11 and Thread Director analyze and determine background and foreground workloads and direct tasks to the right threads on the right cores to provide the best possible performance and computing experience. Let me explain further. Thread Director monitors the instruction set of threads as well as the state of each core with nanosecond precision. From there, Thread Director provides runtime feedback to the OS to help the scheduler choose the right core at the right time for any workload. Finally, it'll direct threads to the right core based on the thermal design point, operating conditions, and power settings. By default, Thread Director will start out directing tasks to utilize the higher frequency performance cores to maximize the level of performance. Once all the P cores are preoccupied, that is when we see Thread Director start to prioritize which tasks should be running on which core and start delegating tasks to E cores. This is to ensure the highest performance possible for each task. So what difference does this make? Thread Director has its biggest impact in multitasking and highly threaded tasks such as gaming and content creation. This is especially impactful on workloads like 3D modeling that are designed to distribute the workload to as many cores as it has available. We've even had major improvements on multi-threaded benchmarks such as Cinebench. For client computing, we don't use Cinebench as a metric because it's such a niche benchmark, but it's always fun to ruffle the feathers of the competition. Now you might be asking, how did processing work before this? There must have been something coordinating all this frequency, or else we'd just be looking at loading screens all day, right? Up until now, most operating systems worked under the assumption that all cores are created equal, and scheduled tasks with that in mind. That's why the combined hardware and software solution provided with Thread Director and Windows 11 is far more performant. The OS now has a much deeper understanding of what power rating each core has and what each one is best used for at the time. The same question can be asked about our competition. What are they doing differently? In the case of AMD, nothing. They are still working under the traditional x86 architecture, supplying cores and allowing the OS to send data through as needs are given. However, without Intel Thread Director, it is not able to deliver the same level of intelligent performance. So there you have it. Sure, I said Thread Director like 100 times, but now hopefully it's clear how it works and what its advantages are. A complex process requires an advanced system to operate. Intel Thread Director is the tool in Intel's tool belt that optimizes its performance and sets it apart from the competition. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to find Intel's wardrobe department.